Afternoon, everybody. Lovely to be here, and thanks to Nicola and John for having me along and inviting me to chat to you guys about CONSUL. If you could just make sure you're on mute, that just helps with any feedback for everybody, but I'm pretty sure we're all used to Teams now. So yeah, thanks to Nicola and John for having me along. I recognise a few of the names in the room right now, so that's brilliant. I was saying to Nicola last week, I just want to try and keep this as informal as possible. So John and Nicola are going to keep an eye on the chat. So I don't want to leave. I certainly don't want it to be death by a PowerPoint for you guys at all. So we'll try and make it as interactive as possible. So please ask any questions as and when they come up, so that everybody that's in the virtual room doesn't have to sit and listen to my voice for an hour and a half solid. So please do just keep asking questions as they pop into your head, and I'll try and take regular pauses to see how everybody is feeling. So I'm just going to share my screen at the moment, as I'm going to try and not do death by PowerPoint, but obviously it's a digital platform, so it's quite visual. So I'll go between some slides that summarise bits about the site, and then we'll go between some different websites. So some live examples in Scotland, as well as Madrid, primarily, where CONSUL started. So if you just bear with me for a few seconds till I share the screen. So my teams, we work on Surface Pros, which are basically tablets, and they just don't love doing very much, especially with video content. So it's a little bit slower than I would love that to be, but hopefully if I work between two screens, see you. So obviously I can't see anybody right now. So if somebody could just put in chat if they can see that screen that says Mainstream PB and realise you're not in the wrong room, because I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to where CONSUL came from. So can we see that okay? A few people are typing. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I'm sure most of you, given the field and sector you all work in, have heard of mainstream participatory budgeting, but that's where CONSUL came from for us, for COSLA. So what I've got on the screen is just a description of mainstream PB. Now that does change, and depending on who you were talking to, but obviously at COSLA and us working with local government, we are looking at the mainstream agenda of PB, of which that small grants, grant giving PB is included, but mainstream PB is very much about people participating and how the council spends and allocates a portion of its own budget. And for PB in Scotland, that is 1% of the budget for it'll either be this financial year or the next financial year, depending on how councils are working at the moment, particularly around recovery from COVID and so on. So the reason I thought it was important for you to just start with mainstream PB and start with that description is when we're looking at participation of people in decisions, in consultation, in collaboration, then digital, even before COVID, digital solutions and technology really needed to be a part of that. And there are I think we have 26 councils engaged in CONSUL at the moment, and I'll talk you through a little bit more about that as we work through this session. And there are a number of other digital platforms that councils are using. For example, Stirling Council, I know, use Citizen Space, Scottish Government use Citizen Space. So CONSUL is not the be-all and end-all of online digital participation and engagement, and neither is there any thought with us, certainly, or with any councils, that is digital by default. Now, of the past year, we would all say, I'm sure, that it has been digital by default, given the nature of the way that we've communicated with each other in the last year and restrictions and so on. But CONSUL, certainly for us, when we were looking at digital solutions to participation, was about enhancing and complementing that face-to-face or a whole host of other ways in which local authorities, community organisations, organisations and so on communicate with each other. So I just think it's really important from the beginning to understand that it's not a digital platform, a digital solution that will take over any of that other engagement that we do with people and communities, but more it's about enhancing. And also, particularly when it comes to, or previously came to small grants, grant giving PB, was that the voting part of PB, or the decision making, I should say, part of PB, lots of those were fantastic events that took place, whether that was an evening or a Saturday afternoon. And by nature, that is not inclusive because everybody can't be at the same place in the same time. And there are no council facilities or no community facilities that could fit absolutely everybody in at one time. So what the digital tool allows us to do is to have more people participate and more people engage more frequently, we hope, and at a time and a place that suits people, as opposed to them having to come to us, whether that is to cast a vote or to tell us what they think or how they feel about whatever it is that engagement activity is about. So on to CONSUL, I'm going to say in inverted commas, acquired it. It's an open source tool, so it is free. And I think that was one of the questions that Nicola sent over, is how much does it cost to use CONSUL? I think one of the reasons we have 26 councils signed up is because it's free. That is for the moment. So my post at COSLA, along with my two colleagues who are in the PB team, are funded by Scottish Government, and at the moment that is until around, we think, September 22. So at the moment it is free and funded until then, and a part of my job, sort of project managing CONSUL at the moment, is about looking for sustainable and long-term solutions to funding CONSUL. But for the moment, for every council that we're working with, it's free. Our aspiration for the project is not to have all 32 councils on board and then we'll know it's a success. It's for all 32 councils to know that it's an option and for them to sign up should they wish to. At the moment, our I guess ambition with it is that for those councils who sign up to use CONSUL, it is one site per council, so that it's a collaborative space for local authorities to talk to their citizens and communities. And also, as you'll see with some of the examples, is for the community members, for people in communities to talk to each other as well. It is very much not something that we want to be wholly led by the council. We want people to talk to each other. We want people to design their own solutions, and for the council not always to be seen as the owner of those solutions, and that people in communities have solutions to whatever they may be, problems, challenges, whatever you may face within your community, is not always looking to others for solutions, but actually building those solutions together. So it's a collaborative space. That's really what's crucial about it. So the way we are working at the moment with the councils we're working with is that each one of them has one site, and however the council uses it is entirely up to them. Once we do I say we, I'm always very quick to let you all know that the we is the technical bit of it is my colleague Tom Clive, who previously worked with My Job Scotland. He has all the technical knowledge. So if you have super technical questions in the chat, I may have to get back to you on those, because Tom is our technical expert, but should hopefully be able to answer the majority of questions if they're not super technical. So Tom is the person that builds each CONSUL site for each council, and we hand them over, if you like, to councils to design, to decide on the collaboration, PB, whatever it is that the council wants to use it for. So it's very much in the hands of the council. Once we do the design, once we build the site, the design is up to the council, and we are there for support along the way. I offer some of the back office training to support councils to know how to use it and to design it. And as I say, Tom does the technical expertise. So you've had lots of time to have a wee look at the slide that's on your screen at the moment. The key bit about CONSUL is it's open and transparent. So one of the questions we get a lot of the time is about moderation of content and moderation of comments. So the way that CONSUL works, because of the transparent nature of it, is that if you wanted to comment on a proposal on the site, or suggest a way in which you think a budget should be spent. That is not moderated. Nobody checks that comment or content before you post it, because there shouldn't be a holder that says whether or not you can post something on that site. But there are lots of different ways to moderate content after it's gone onto the site. And should you have any questions about moderation, we can have a chat about those later on. I should say we do get a lot of questions about what about inappropriate content or what about bad language. It is not our experience in Scotland so far that has been an issue, particularly because of the comms and marketing that councils have done with their site to ensure it is a space for working together for those collaborative pieces. And I work really closely with the developer who initially set up COSLA in Madrid, and it's used globally, as you can see on the screen there. It's used by over 55 countries and lots of different organisations around the world, and doesn't tend to be that inappropriate content and language doesn't tend to be an issue. So we're fairly confident that the moderation that is built into the site works, given what the site has been designed to do. So there are 5 key elements within COSLA. Every council can use, or every organisation who has their COSLA site, I'm trying not to use it council all the time so that you don't see it as a platform that is solely about the council. It is very much about the community that's within, and communities that are within a council area. So there are 5 key elements. Any council can use any one of those 5 elements. So it'll make more sense when I show you the live sites as they are. But the council, an organisation does not have to use all 5 of those sites. It doesn't, I guess, build expectation that people can participate in a number of different ways. So, for example, the collaborative legislation and participatory budgeting elements are the only ones that have been used widespread in Scotland so far, mostly because COSLA is so different because of the open and transparent and not content not moderated in advance of citizens posting anything. So it's a bit of a journey in how we communicate with people, with each other, along with how the local authority can get involved in the conversation, because I mean, we'll all understand how challenging conversation between the local authority and people is on social media, and what we want COSLA to be is an open place where conversation can happen in a safe space, I suppose, for local authority staff, but equally for community members as well. So they're the 5 key elements of COSLA. This is, I'm going to pause after this slide in case anybody has any questions, because I can't see any of you and I just hear my own voice. It's nice for you guys to hear somebody else as well. So these are the list of councils that on the left-hand column have used COSLA for something. Some either PB or collaborative legislation in the last couple of years. I should say Western Bartonshire were the first council that went live with COSLA in February 2019. So all of those have been live since 2019. Some of the councils on the left-hand side have only used COSLA once so far. So Aberdeen City, for example, used it for a consultation, I think, around the new school hub at Torry. So apologies if I've got anybody in Aberdeen City and I've got that wrong or said that wrong. And Glasgow have only used it for PB in 4 wards so far, along with some PB around green space. And the reason West Lothian has a wee asterisk beside it is to remind me that I'll talk about it again in a while, but West Lothian are live right now, and they are the first council in Scotland to use COSLA integrated with my account, which I'll explain in a little while. And the councils on the right-hand side, some of them say TBC, but that's mostly because we're in early conversations with that council and there aren't any definitive plans about using it this year, but we've had some conversations about looking at it further, and some others are further down the line than that initial conversation. But these are I think there are 26 councils that we are engaged with so far. If your council or a council isn't there, it doesn't mean they've said no to using it. They might have other solutions and they just might not be ready or really want to use it, I suppose, and that is absolutely fine with us. So I'm going to put the next slide up. I'm going to talk through all of these, the 5 key elements, so you don't have to read all of that that's there on the page right now, but I would like to pause to see if anybody has any questions or comments or anything at the moment. It also gives me a chance to take a drink of water. So, no questions yet, I'm assuming.
There's nothing particularly in the chat yet, Gillian.
Great.
I was just wondering, watching that, if people don't know who leads for CONSUL in their area, how do people go around finding that out?
The best way would be to get in touch with me. I have all of because I sort of lead the project. If anybody on the call does want to know who their lead is and their council is, put it in the chat and I can let you know. I mean, they're all open email addresses, they're all work situations, so I'm quite happy to share details either privately through email or in the chat. But if anybody is thinking, who's my lead? I have that information probably to hand. I've got a bit of a memory for names and councils. But good question, John. So I'm assuming nobody has any other questions yet, which is not uncommon. We haven't actually heard or seen much about the platform yet. So 5 key elements right now. What I've tried to do in an effort to not go too much between internet sites and a presentation, I have done a lot of screenshots so that I can explain the screenshot as we are going through, and again, just pop up if you have any questions. So 5 key participation processes you can see along the top here. So this is the Madrid site. The whole platform was developed in Madrid. It has far greater use in Madrid city than it has anywhere else in the world. So it's a good place to start with. And if you remember me saying, in Scotland, we have only used collaborative legislation, which is this processes bit, and PB, so I don't have any Scottish sites to show you yet. So the debate and the proposal part of the site, when, I'm going to say in inverted commas, switched on. So if any of these were not switched on, so any of these debates, proposals, PB was not switched on, they wouldn't be seen on the front site of the page, so it wouldn't look like a blank part. You just wouldn't, a citizen would just never know that that part of it existed at the moment if they were switched on or switched off. So you can see in Madrid they have them all switched on. I should also say that the names of these can all be changed, as they have been in Scotland so far, as they've been used across the country, so that they mean more to a local authority area. So we've had this conversation across the country that debates has a bit of a negative connotation, that debate sounds like you're starting an argument. So if you want to change citizens' debates, it can be tell us what you think, or what are your ideas about Stirling, or whatever that may be. I keep saying Stirling, I live in Stirling Council area, so it's not because I have more knowledge about Stirling than anywhere else other than living there. So the debates and the proposals, once they are switched on, to participate in any of the CONSUL sites, you have to be registered, so you have to sign in and register. So for every site except West Lothian at the moment, the way you sign in and register is using an email address, and you have to put in your postcode, and that just checks that you live in the area that you're trying to access the site for, and it lets you into the site. Now, you don't need any of those details just to search online and see what's happening in North Lanarkshire or North Ayrshire or so on. But to participate in the conversation, you have to be signed in and registered. And every council area is looking for people who live in that area to participate. And we've had the debates many times, particularly in Dundee actually, about should we really be locking sites down, if you like, so that only people who live there can participate, given we're quite a mobile society in Scotland, particularly around the Central Belt, where we maybe do not live and work and live our lives all in the same council area. But for the moment, the site is set up that you sign in, register and participate in the area in which you live. So once you've signed in and registered, if the debates are switched on or proposals are switched on, a citizen, so a person, an individual, can go and start a conversation on whatever it is they would like to start the conversation about. So it won't surprise any of you that the majority, every COSLA site that I have looked at across the world when I'm testing things out or looking at how they're going down across the world. The majority of sites so far have a debate about dogfiling, which is a lovely conversation, but a huge problem across the world. So a citizen, an individual would go and start a conversation about whatever it is that matters to them. So you can see this person in Madrid is talking about public transport, that can we have one ticket if you're going metro, bus, whatever else it might be. So if I can't click into this because it's a screenshot. I'm going to show you these sites in a little while anyway. You can see that this debate that this person has started has 296 comments. So that means that I've put up my conversation, I've put up my idea, and then people have commented on that idea and had a conversation about it. And if you want to participate in that way, you can using comments, but equally, if you want to just agree or disagree with this person's idea, you can use thumbs up or thumbs down. And you can see that that has been a fairly active debate and conversation in the past. And that's really the debate section. There isn't a thought that you have to get to a certain threshold, or there needs to be a huge amount of conversation. It is really a place, in some respects, what we've seen in other countries is that people solve their own problems between them, or solve their own issues between them, or for the local authority, particularly where you can tag specific issues within your debate, it lets the local authority or anybody search in this little search bar up here, what are people saying about the environment, what are people saying about traffic, and you can go in and see the types of debates and conversations that are happening about a specific subject, and here is where you would click and start that conversation. For the local authority, it may help, or for individuals who live in a place, for something to get 6,000 votes, you can see that it's a fairly either a hot topic or something that lots of people agree with. If 96% of 6,000 people agree that we should be looking at a different ticketing system for public transport or whatever that may be, we can see from then that might be something we might want to talk to the person who has put the debate online, or have a look at the conversation, or whatever it is the local authority wants to do. And part of the reasons that councils in Scotland just haven't used these 2 pages yet is capacity for the in all honesty, and also it's changing the relationship and changing the way we converse between the local authority and citizens and them with each other. So we've got a little bit of a journey to go on, one for the capacity for staff to be able to, in a council, to be able to keep an eye on those kind of debates and not build expectation that if everybody was allowed to suggest lots of different ideas, that the council would do something about all of those ideas, or that the council has the capacity to go in and monitor all of that information. And we're working on an artificial intelligence project to hopefully help some of those issues that I'll tell you about in a little while. So a few reasons why it's not being used. We've talked about it a lot, and council staff that we've spoken to love the idea of that open conversation, but just a little way to go. And we would recommend with the councils that we work with that they don't switch on all of the 5 participation elements at once. For staff capacity, but so we don't, a local authority does not build expectation that they can participate and talk to people in all of these ways all of that time. So it's about sort of building a user base to communicate with, not raising expectation, and then that not playing out in a positive way. So they're debates. I actually can see, because I've got 2 screens, so I can see the chat. So please do let me know if you want me to stop and answer any questions. I'm going to go on to the proposal section now. You shouldn't have favourites and things, but this is definitely my favourite part of CONSUL, and can't wait for it to be seen and used in Scotland. So a proposal is, rather than a debate, is kind of seen as probably a one-sided way of, I think this is an issue, or this is my suggestion, what do you think, and people agreeing or disagreeing. The proposals part of CONSUL is encouraging solutions. So you will see in Madrid, and I have the links at the end of the presentation, I know Nicola and John will send it out to you, but a lot of the proposals in Madrid are really environmental issues, or about how to, find different solutions for areas within neighbourhoods, and people have ideas. So one of the proposals that I have seen in Madrid has been about solar panels on bus stops, for example, to try and reduce carbon and try and make them more attractive and make them more user-friendly, I think with how things are displayed. So an individual has gone in and suggested the solution to what they perceive as an issue. When you click into the proposal, you can add videos, you can add pictures, you can add links to other documents, you can add as much information as you would like about your proposal. And I guess the crucial and the fundamental bit about proposals is that there are a certain number of supports that do need to be reached. And the comms and marketing about that for the council would be one of the important issues. Is you can set that, so the council sets the number of supports needed to be anything that they like it to be. In Madrid it's 27,500, which would probably not be achievable for many areas within Scotland. Certainly some populations are nowhere near that. So say the council sets that at 500, for example, and it's a place that it allows people to say, this is an issue within my community, here are the solutions to that issue, and this many people agree with me. People can put their put their proposal and share it on social media, but crucially it's about saying this is an issue to me and 499 other people. We all know that there are people within our communities that know exactly who to talk to, whether that's within the council, whether that's an elected member, and they know how to have their voice heard, but there are far more people who have no idea how to make their voice heard or how to participate and say that they agree and they coalesce around this idea to make life better for them in their place or in their community. And that's the premise behind the support, the necessary number of supports, is that it allows an elected member, it allows local authority officers within a particular service area to see that that's not a perceived issue. If 500 people agree that that's an issue, or 10 people, or however many it is, then it might be we need to have a further conversation. So when I said the comms and marketing are important, it's very important that a council lets people know in advance what will happen if you reach those number of supports. So there's not the commitment to say we'll fund your solution. It's not the commitment to say we will do this completely. It's saying, okay, if you get to this number of supports, we understand it's an issue, we'll enter into a conversation with those people who have suggested that proposal, and we'll maybe look at taking it to the next and future steps. Now that might be putting forward those proposals into a PB budget project or whatever that may be. The comms around that is really important, so people understand, well, when we get to this number of supports, I want to know what happens, because I need to know that me participating, there's a point behind it. I'm not just clicking something I like and nothing happens with that, or I'm not engaging in this conversation and then I have no idea what difference that has made. And I'm sure you'll all agree that one of the issues with too much consultation between a local authority or any public body and citizens is when people do participate, they don't often know what happens as a result of that participation, what changed as a result of it. How have I made a difference by getting involved? And we have a lot of community apathy to participating because that what's the point? And the proposals are part of the site. We hope, and it's certainly been demonstrated in Madrid, that it will start to change the point, that people feel that getting involved, there's a reason, and there is somewhere that I can voice my concerns without, I suppose, in a lot of council websites, the way in which you can engage can often be through a complaint, and it might not necessarily be a complaint. I might genuinely have an idea about how to, I don't know, fix potholes with recycled plastic water bottles or whatever it might be. So trying to change the way we work with people and people work with each other. So I'm going to pause there for a wee second and see if there are any questions or any comments. I mean, you don't even have to have a question. It's always quite nice for me. I'm so into CONSUL and I've been working on it for 2 years. So even if you have any comments or, you think it sounds possible or you know, how do you feel about it so far? Don't be shy.
Hi, Jillian. Just taking a look at the chat bar, I don't see any particular comments there, but I did wonder if I could ask a question about the functionality you've just been walking us through, and you mentioned that it's an exciting part. It's your favourite part of the platform. Are there plans to bring that to Scotland or to mobilise that section?
I think, well, every council has within each individual console site has that functionality. So in terms of a council plan to use proposals, that is not something I would know necessarily if they were planning to use it or not, but the functionality exists for every site in Scotland to use proposals. I would say that as a sort of general broad brush answer, the majority of councils looking at console right now will start with collaborative legislation and PB, because the conversation can be started by the council and ask for people to engage with them on a particular area, and then start to look at how people are participating and how that conversation is going. And generally what we've seen is people are participating on specific subjects, whereas open participation is a slightly different concept in Scotland. But I do have to say, whenever I'm doing any of these sessions with council staff, with senior managers within councils, with, you know, what may be deemed in inverted commas decision makers, that they can see absolutely that there is a place for using proposals. But I think we've got a wee bit of a journey to go on before councils have the capacity and that relationship with people to say, okay, suggest whatever you like and we're okay with what you say.
Thank you very much.
So I can actually see the chat now. I didn't think I would be able to. So, and Selena, you might not want to say which your local authority is, but it would be interesting.
Western Bartonshire.
Oh, perfect. Western Bartonshire have actually just finished using console for PB, for participated budgeting, for community budgeting 5. I think they just closed it last week, I think the week before. So Western Bartonshire were the first, as I said, in the council, in the country to use it, and have just finished it for community budgeting 5.
I've been aware of the community budgeting side, but I wasn't aware that it could do the broader range of things.
Yeah.
And I can see some really exciting proposal type work that could be done, but I'm just not sure where the local authority is placed on it just now.
Well, they were testing it mostly for PB to try and build a different way to participate digitally. And I have been having some conversations with Elaine at Western Bartonshire about the broader use of the site. So it's there in their heads. I think, like most authorities, they're looking at testing it with one part first. How does that go? Let's review it. Let's evaluate it. Let's look at, if we have this level of participation, what could we do next?
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Great, no problem. Thanks, Lena. Okay, so and Angie, yes, I know that we've chatted before with Dundee, and I have been chatting with Marie again about using console in Dundee, so it's definitely still there. I think we're all aware that a pandemic has put us behind a little bit. So what I want to do, I'm going to show you one more part of the site before we go to a couple of live examples. And John, yes, proposals can come from organisations as well as individuals. So if the local authority had a proposal, if third sector interface had a proposal, if a community organisation, a school, parent council, whatever that may be, an organisation can put up a proposal on behalf of their organisation as well as individuals. So yes, really that collaborative space for people to coalesce. Now, the voting part of it, I can't find a single country site in the world that is live with voting at the moment. So this is the result of a vote that was live in a city in northern Spain. So I'll just talk you through it very briefly. What this allows, the voting, this is the front end of the voting bit from, I think it's A Coruña in northern Spain. So what this part of the site allows the local authority to do, so it would be the organisation that instigated this this part of the site. So it's voting but not related to PB, is if as part of a collaborative process, as part of consultation and engagement, a number of proposals were brought forward, whether that's from the proposal site or from, I guess, off-site work, offline work. And the best example would be if an area was building a new school, so a new community campus or a new secondary school or a primary school or whatever that was, all of that engagement would not happen digitally, obviously. But after a period of engagement and consultation, there may be multiple plans for a building, for a school building within a community. And what the voting part of the site would allow the local authority to do is put up all of those plans. So whether that was architects' drawings, pictures, a virtual reality film, whatever that may be, you can put up all of those documents onto the voting part of the site and have people to vote on their favourite proposal or their favourite idea, favourite design, whatever that may be. And one of the ways I think about it is, from my previous days working in the community engagement team at Stirling Council, was budget proposals or consultations about a change of space, a change of route, adding in a cycle lane, whatever that may be. Previously, most of that consultation, the information would have been online and people might be able to fill out an online consultation, a Survey Monkey or whatever. But if they wanted to talk to us, talk to you about that consultation, they would have to come to us. So they might have to come to, in the town hall on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock in November. I'm making that sound really negative, but the reality of people having to come to us to tell us what they think about what something we want to do. The voting part of the site puts all of the information online. It allows for comments and things as well, but it allows people to make an informed decision in their own time. So here are all the documents about this school building, for example. Read through them all, and then once you've had time in your own time, you can vote on which one of those is most palatable to you or would work best for your family or your children, whatever that might be, instead of coming to us for a very short period of time without all of the information and having to make a decision. So it allows for informed decision and in a time that suits the person as opposed to the organisation. But crucially, I think I've talked about the open and transparent nature of CONSUL. So, for example, in voting or in collaborative legislation, if you were asking a specific question of community members, of individuals, of organisations, and they answered that question, everybody would see the answers to those questions. So, a traditional consultation is you fill out the consultation form and the owner of that consultation or a couple of people see it. On CONSUL, everybody sees the whole conversation, which has been hugely powerful and has actually, particularly in North Ayrshire, has formed some really good relationships. So when a vote is live on CONSUL, it has a beginning and an end. The beginning and the end are known because of the transparent nature of the site. So you would always know that voting period for this new school building, this is a marina, this example here, you would always know when the vote was going to finish. Now, when the vote finishes in the back office, so the part that you don't see, say it finishes at midnight, immediately what is available to the community, to community members, to everybody, is the result of the vote. So there was, I think, 5 different questions or 5 different ways to participate in this vote here, and you can, some of them are in Spanish and I can't speak Spanish, so I can't translate them for you, but what you can see at the other side of it is exactly how many people voted on this suggestion for question A and this suggestion for question B, and it's immediately available for everybody to see the results of that vote. So quite often in consultation, or if you're looking at the infrastructure part of what a local authority does, so changing a bike lane or taking away a car lane and adding in a bike lane or parking spaces or whatever, if you're asked to vote or participate and the end result is not what you had voted on or not how you had made your feelings known, sometimes the trust can be a challenge for people within their local authority and elected members if they don't see their participation reflected in the end result. Whereas with this part of the site, it's immediately clear to see how many people voted on each of the suggestions to the question, and then which one got the most or the share of the votes. Now that might mean that does or doesn't happen, but I think what it does is that sort of journey of trust, or that relationship with people and the local authority or the public body or the CPP or whoever has ownership, if you like, of the consul site. They can see the result of how they participated and how they got involved in the conversation and in the consultation. So yeah, kind of powerful actually to see immediately. So if I had voted on Port City, for example, as an option, and Port City was not a favoured option in any one of these questions, I can see immediately, okay, I was in the minority, but I can quite clearly see where else people voted and what else people thought about that area. So I think that's powerful in changing the relationship, if you like, between people and each other and the local authority. So I'm going to just stop sharing this presentation for a wee second so I can show you some real sites, because I think that's what's important. So, and I don't think you now can see, so I need to just stop sharing and then share the right screen, so just bear with me for a wee second, and you can have a wee think if you have any questions, or grab yourself a chocolate biscuit. Let me just share the right screen. Sorry about that. I thought if I shared my desktop it would work for both. So give me a wee second. Technology is brilliant until it doesn't work, isn't it? Or work the way you want it to. So I'm going to use some Scottish examples to show you collaborative legislation. I think that's really powerful. And I know Angie had said that she was looking for some up-to-date examples, which is really important. So I'm just waiting for the screen to load up at the moment. I feel like I've become more used to talking to virtual rooms like this where everybody's on mute and it feels like you're talking to yourself. I know I'm not talking to myself, but we get more used to it. So this is North Ayrshire's page. North Ayrshire probably have used CONSUL more than any other council, particularly around the collaborative legislation part of the site. So this is Shaping North Ayrshire, is what North Ayrshire have called collaborative legislation. So when I had said earlier that you can change debates, proposals, PB, whatever that may be, you can change that to language that would mean something to the community but mean something to the local authority as well. So you weren't having to fit into those headings that don't make any sense in Scotland. So North Ayrshire have changed theirs and used their whole brand around Shaping North Ayrshire. When they went live, they had done a lot of work with their comms and marketing team about how to get people to sign up and how for people in North Ayrshire to know this was the platform to go to be able to participate and have your voices heard. So this was some locality partnership work that they had been doing in the last few months. If I take you to the review of libraries, halls and centres, I think this might be the second consultation they have done on hall centres and libraries. And as you can imagine, it's a fairly hot topic. And I think in North Ayrshire, they were very, very clever when they wanted to start using CONSUL. They picked a subject or picked an area that they knew would drive traffic to the site and get people talking. So that because people, the libraries, community centres and so on mean so much to people within communities, particularly in North Ayrshire where they've got some smaller communities, and you know that community centre, library or whatever it may be is really the centre of that community, of that village, of that town. So this is collaborative legislation. So the council has started this conversation. So collaborative legislation is I guess the consultative part of the site, but it allows for shared working around whether plans, policies. It is not designed for the organisation to put up a whole load of information and for people to just read it. It is there for people to consult, engage, ask questions, answer questions around. So you can see here with North Ayrshire, they have put up a whole host of information with some external links. So they can see the process of the first engagement, the second engagement, the journey that this consultation has been on. And there's lots of different links here to each of the individual centres that people were engaging around. And if I go into Arran, because I checked this one out earlier to show you, what they have here is a couple of links to additional documents, and then there are 3 participation phases in CONSUL for collaborative legislation. So there's the debate that they have switched on. There is also a comments section which leaves it open for people to comment on without those headers within a debate. So a debate really is a consultation. So here are the questions the council would like you to answer, and you go in and answer their questions. The comments tab, if that was up to the right of the debate section, if that was switched on, would allow for a more open conversation led by people rather than the organisation. And then the third participation phase is proposals. So what that, it kind of works like the proposal section I told you about earlier, but what it would mean is if there was a lot of content or a lot of links or whatever it was up here, it would allow people to propose an alternative solution to something within the document. It would allow people to suggest something differently, so to basically take the wording from a document and then propose a new way, or a new way of wording that, or actually that's not the right solution and here's my proposal for the right solution. So it's much more of a collaborative piece. But the CONSUL is on a journey, so I mean, what we're not going to see is you can only participate in one way right now, so whether that's through social media or a complaints form within a local authority, to opening absolutely everything up. So I think it's important to just keep re-emphasising that this is going to be a journey between individuals within communities and the local authority, and vice versa. So we've got to take those steps in phases as opposed to everything all at once. So what North Ayrshire have done here is ask a series of questions about the library. I think I've clicked on for North Ayrshire. So if I click onto this, there's you can obviously you can see there that you have to sign in or sign up to participate, and I'm not signed into North Ayrshire site, so I can't participate, but I can see it. So this is the question, here are the answers that North Ayrshire are looking for, or here's your answer, and then below it, what's important, and I really wanted to be able to show you this part of it, is that people can comment on that question, people can comment on a document or whatever it might be. So you can see that the people who have signed up and registered on North Ayrshire's site, these are their comments about libraries on Arran or the Outdoor Education Centre. And then you can see on the right hand side that if you were signed in, you can agree or disagree with that comment that somebody has put up on the site. So it's just trying to encourage a conversation between people as opposed to lots of it being hidden behind. And I should say the username when you sign up on the, I'm going to say we've got 2 versions of CONSUL. This is version 1, which the majority of the country have without my account. But however you are signing up or registering on CONSUL, you choose your own username. So you can be anonymous if you want to be. You can see Kirsty Forsyth has decided to be Kirsty Forsyth, but equally it could be Reading Bee 55. And that's important for people to understand, for people to feel safe within a space about what they would like to say about the library. And if your view about the library is that it should close, then you should feel free enough online to be able to say, this is how I feel about it, without fear of what other people within your community might say. And that's been an important bit of the conversation with some councils so far, is for people to be able to say, to have an unpopular opinion, but that unpopular opinion be as heard as the popular opinion, and for people not to feel that they would be, I don't know, seen or in inverted commas targeted because folk can see their name. So it's entirely possible for people to use an anonymous name or their own name when they're signing in and registering, and actually you can change your name through your own account as well. If you had decided to be Jillian Gibson, realised you had an unpopular opinion and wanted to feel safe about that unpopular opinion, you can change your username. equally, you can, there's a section when you were signed in up here that you can delete your own account as well. So you're in charge of what you're saying, but you're in charge of your own account as well, and you can delete that as you feel free to do it. So that is North Ayrshire's. We'll show you a couple of them so you can see a bit of the conversation. So it's a fairly long question there. If we click into it again, North Ayrshire are asking you to answer a question, and the conversation has gone on. So I think North Ayrshire did the 5 locality planning consultations, and then the consultation about their halls, centres and libraries, and we just did some work with them. So they had about, we think, about 1,500 comments across the 6 of these consultation pieces. So they've had some really good engagement and really good conversation about, you know, the locality partnerships and their hall centres and libraries. And if I'll take you to one more just now, just to kind of highlight. This is Fife, and again the links are at the end of the presentation. So I've already sent them to Nicola, so you can get a copy of those links and have a look around yourself about what some other councils are doing. So this is Let's Talk is what Fife have called a collaborative legislation, and you can see they've embedded a video link within theirs. A couple of them actually, a fair amount of information, links to some other documents, and so looking for some feedback. So they have no comments on that. So that's about just over a month old. And we've had a conversation with a number of councils about where they've had high or low levels of engagement on CONSUL, and we have been looking at whether that is a CONSUL issue around logging in, registering, too many clicks, what's the journey to participate like, versus how has the comms and marketing from the council perspective been, how do people know that this consultation exists, and trying to find the balance between the usability of CONSUL and the general knowledge about what the council have done to let communities know, or let people know that the platform is there and they can go on and sign in and participate in the conversation. So I wouldn't say because there are no comments on any one of these sites that's a bad thing, but we do work with all of our councils to understand what have been the successes, what are the challenges, because CONSUL is not a finished product for us, and I'll talk to you in a little bit about the development program that we're on. Because it is open source, we can make technical changes to the site and build in some new coding and new programming, and Tom, our developer, has been doing a lot of that in the last year. So it's important for us as a team to understand what works well with CONSUL but what doesn't work well, and how do we prioritise that development work. Being honest and bearing in mind that we have one developer and 32 councils, and it is a fairly massive project. So we have to be realistic and not build expectation with councils about the development work that we can or can't do. The priority for us right now is my account, and again I'll talk to you about that in a minute or two. But I just wanted to pause and just check in for any comments or any questions. Because collaborative legislation has been used a lot, we tend to have a lot of conversation about its possibilities, because you can put a lot of information up there, but the conversation is open and transparent, that people can talk to each other, and people can comment not only on the council's question, but that people can comment on it with each other. And they've done a lot of that through the previous consultation, particularly in North Ayrshire, about hall centres and libraries, that people spoke to each other about how they used the library or what they thought about the community. And I can't remember which community it was, but actually there was a lot of conversation in one about the Janny, and it was just so nice to hear people being publicly celebratory of a person who had worked in their local community and what they had done for them. So it doesn't all have to be, here are all of the problems in an area and tell us how to solve them. Sometimes it can be positive too. So let me just pause for a second and see if we have any comments or questions. I'm not going to bring out my pleading voice of, does somebody else want to talk, because you're sure you're sick of hearing me, but any general thoughts or questions at this point?
Hi Jillian, it's Nicola. We've got one of our our participants needs to leave for an appointment, but just to reassure you, we'll circulate the handouts to folks who are
Great.
in the room. So that's just to yeah, I think for me it's been really interesting to hear the functionality, you know, that CONSUL offers in presenting local authorities with options to extend the level of sophistication that may have been a kind of standard route for consultation in the past. You know, when you spoke about you know, perhaps a survey being used, and as someone who's responded to a questionnaire about local plans in the past, you know, that piece about you put your views into the questionnaire and then it disappears off, then something happens, but it doesn't correlate with how I was, you know, thinking, or how it might affect me and my family. So I think, you know, the sophistication that CONSUL offers is, you know, in my view, a real step forward in comparison to some of the more traditional forms of consultation. So really just to make that remark.
Thanks, Nicola. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation has gone when we've done sessions similar to this, is, you know, trying to change and adapt and respond to what has or what hasn't worked in the past about consultations and engagement and participations. Okay, just looking at John. So how user-friendly is it? Would people need help from you or Tom set up every page, or can be this? Yes, so it is I would say very user-friendly. The reassuring thing is, if I can do it, I feel like anybody can possibly learn the site. So what happens at the moment from an admin, so from a council perspective, is we give over the blank site, if you like, to the council, and the council does all of the design. This site you can see right now from West Lothian was entirely done by staff at West Lothian Council, exactly the same as the ones you saw for North Ayrshire and for Fife. We didn't do any of that work. What we have some user guides that we let people see and have, but also I do training, like back office training, and you know, how to set up the debate, how to set up participatory budgeting, how to put cards, these individual little bits at the bottom here in West Lothian are cards. And so far it has been very user friendly. I think lots of it is determined by who the person is within the council that's leading on the CONSUL site, you know, if they have any web experience or how confident they feel designing a website. But the general framework around it, you can see that the majority of them, they're built around the same framework. So far it has there's not proven to be any problems in any of the design, and once they get that blank site from Tom, after some training from me, and sometimes they don't even need any of that training, they're able to go and get to this point. So from a user perspective, so a community member's perspective, we really rely on the council doing that evaluation and that monitoring on user friendliness from the council, from a user's perspective, because our job is solely working with the local authority on their site. And we do know that councils work with the communities because it's the council's site. It's not COSLA's site. It's not, you know, it's not one central thing. This is West Lothian's site, and it's up to them to do the monitoring engagement with citizens. And we've had some feedback on a PB project in West Lothian that has just gone live. I think they got less user participation than we expected. So we'll work with them on monitoring and evaluation to understand if that's from a CONSUL perspective or a general. The community didn't know about it. So it is very much a project between COSLA and the local authorities to look at what the priorities are for development and how it's used and so on. So you've seen 4 of the 5 so far, 4 of the 5 participation processes. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just going to PB is where, I guess it's where it all began with CONSUL in Scotland in particular, because we had been asked, our PB team at COSLA had been asked about digital solutions and was there a digital solution that fitted for Scotland as opposed to 32 councils looking for different solutions. So this CONSUL is the one platform that we, COSLA, I work with local authorities on, although there are many more, but this is our priority and this is the platform that we work with. So it started with PB, and the bonus for us is that PB does not just sit talking about money. PB is about democratic renewal, and PB is about participatory democracy. It's not just I only participate by ticking a box and voting on something, that I have something to say, and that's the reason that we sort of acquired a CONSUL, if you like, was it does more than PB, and actually PB tends to be the smallest bit of it, which is really interesting. So this is the PB project where the voting has finished in Western Bartonshire, and they used it for some parks improvements. It can be, as you can see here, the way that the team at West Lothian have done theirs is split it by different. Now, I'm going to just say areas because I know that every local authority uses different ways to area partnerships, locality partnerships, wards, whatever it may be. So these are the areas that West Lothian split their PB budgets into. So you can see there were 5 of them there, all with their own different pots of money. You can have your map here. The crucial bit about PB and about CONSUL with PB is the transparency, and I've mentioned that a couple of times. So when a local authority is looking to use CONSUL for PB, the process, the timeline, what is happening at every single stage is known from the beginning. So if there's an information phase where there is no participation phase at that point, but there's a start and an end day to the information phase where people can find out as much information as they want. There may be an application phase, if you like, and you can do that on CONSUL and suggest how you would like to spend a portion of that budget on parks or whatever it may be. So there are a number of different participation processes. There are more than there are here. They can be hidden in the back end of the site, depending on what process the council is using, but the bit that is fundamental and key is the transparency of it. So everybody knows exactly how they can participate, when they can participate, and then I'll show you in a second their participation phases, and then again, crucially, knowing how their participation has made a difference. So this is West Lothian's. If I go into Winchborough project at the moment, you could see there would be some information and some pictures, how much that project cost, and if you were voting, I'll go into one of them here. There's a picture of a new Winter's Path, and there isn't very much information on there actually, but I'll show you Madrid site, which has a lot more information, and then I can vote, or I could have voted on that project. So it's all about transparency, about process, about information, about when I can participate, about what difference my participation makes. And the best way for me to show you this one is Madrid, just because of where we're at in Scotland with PB at the moment, and the pandemic that we're all more than well aware of. So if I just translate this page, so the way that Madrid and they had set up PB, set up CONSUL all those years ago, so you can see this actually all happened before Madrid City had an election in 2019, and their administration pre-2019 was very keen on PB, and post-2019 not. So that's why it's a 2019, and there's not been anything since then. So they, as you can see from here, dedicated an enormous amount of money to the whole of Madrid City and then to each of the districts below it. So this is a completed project, but I want to show you the functionality within the PB bit for the transparency. So all of this money, each of the pins that are in this map here is a project that people suggested to allocate some of the money within the project. So here is the participation phase here. These parts here are what are really important. So they've been translated, you can see, from Spanish into English, so the English is absolutely perfect. So what happens in CONSUL if you were to do mainstream PB all on CONSUL? As you see, the information phase there, the accepting projects phase, and so on. Now, obviously, with local authority and government money, there has to be a degree of checking against the project's in scope, it's affordable, people might just have an idea and they don't need to suggest the cost of an idea. So for example, if there was parks and open spaces, PB money there, and somebody suggested we would like a new accessible play park in X area, and we think that's the best way to spend this money, they'll, generally most people have no idea how much a play park costs. Well, if that is within scope and feasible, the local authority may spend some time throughout this participation phase. That internal project review is costing up that play park proposal before it goes along into support and voting phase. So there's a phase in there for, I guess, if you like, technical experts or experts around budget to be able to work up projects into looking at their feasibility. But what's important is that the process that things go through in the back end, if you like, if projects are not selected for the final vote, or they are not workable, they're not viable, then they are all available for you to see online, and you will be communicated with. If you put a project forward and it didn't get forward for the public vote, it all ends up here. So everybody can see exactly what's been feasible and in scope, and what didn't go forward to the public vote. So nothing is ever hidden. You don't put up a proposal and then think, I wonder where that went, I never saw that again. It would always be available for you and everybody else to be able to see. And the other exciting bit is if I go to 2017 and see the results, similar to the voting part that I showed you earlier. So this is the whole city, so they're 30 million euros. In green, these are all the projects that were put forward for the public vote. When the vote closed, in the back office at the end of the project, you can see exactly how many votes a project got, and the cost of that project. I'm not entirely sure why these two say zero. Maybe they were nothing to do with money, but this project got, just under 6,000 votes. It cost 21,000 euros, and the money continues to go down until it's spent based on the number of votes and the amount of the project. So that transparency of, I know exactly how many votes that got, and I know exactly how much was allocated to that project. And then crucially, after a vote has the vote has been completed and I've seen the results, the project monitoring of each project can happen online as well. So obviously in the world that I occupy around mainstream participatory budgeting, it's local authority, it's local government money. So if I have cast my vote and my vote made the difference and that project was voted on, this part of the site allows the organisation, the local authority, whatever it may be, to be able to monitor, to be able to update people on the process and the progress of that project, because obviously it's about local authority money. That money's not going out of the authority to go to a community or a third sector organisation. It's staying within the local authority, and it's really, so this allows for the organisation, that public body, to say, this is where we're at with this project. It's been held up because of the weather, it's been held up because of COVID, whatever that may be, and it allows you to monitor, to open and transparently monitor and show how the project is going. And we do know from a lot of conversations that Audit Scotland were really happy about that as well, because it showed from the very beginning of people suggesting on how public money should be spent to the final vote to what actually happened. It shows the entire journey and every single bit along the way, and everybody can see how their participation made a difference, and if it didn't make a difference to the final vote, why it didn't. So that is the PB part of the site. Just the other couple of things I wanted to tell you about before we pause or stop for questions was the developments that are happening this year. So I had said that CONSUL is open source. We've done a lot of work with councils. We had a big session with councils in February 2020, to look at Okay, CONSUL as it is, how much does it meet council's needs? How does it meet users' needs? What are the development needs? As you know, it was a platform that started in Madrid. One of the big differences between Madrid and Scotland is that in Madrid you have a citizen ID or city ID. So when you go to register and sign in and all of that participation in CONSUL, you use your city ID, and that has all of your demographic information behind it. So in Madrid, with their CONSUL platform, they can see who's participating, where they're participating from, to look at that demographic information, to understand participation data, you know, how many men and women are participating, what age groups and so on. And that is really powerful when looking at whether you have limited or a lot of resources looking at who is and isn't participating. And we don't have that, as you know, that type of ID in Scotland. So the only way that registration and sign up can happen right now, aside from West Lothian and Moray, who are about to go live with My Account, is using an email address and a postcode. And the postcode isn't stored, and we also use date of birth, but neither the postcode or the date of birth are able to be stored on the site. So it means we just don't understand who is and isn't participating. We add Google Analytics and so on, but it's just nowhere near as reliable as councils need that information to be. So Tom has worked intensively with some developer support and the improvement service to integrate My Account with CONSUL. And My Account is the mygov.scot sort of single sign-in for public services. So you might know it through, you know, paying for school meals or council tax or bins or whatever that may be. So West Lothian, as I said, were the first council to go live. It took an enormous amount of work on Tom's part to write and develop and test the coding for that. So it has taken an awful long time. So he's done a power of work. So at the moment, it's only been used in phase one is to streamline and improve registration and sign-in. So on West Lothian site, as every site will be, if you don't have a My account, you can sign up for it through CONSUL. And if you do, if you've signed up for it through Young Scot, because the Young Scot rewards are done through My Account, or if you've used it in your council area to pay your council tax, you would use the same sign-in details for CONSUL. So if you don't have it, you can sign up through it. Phase two, which we hope will happen towards the end of this year, but it's really all about resource, if I'm totally honest, because we have Tom and 26 councils we're working with. Some, as you've seen with North Ayrshire and Fife, have already gone live, and they'll need new sites to use My Account, and others who've not used it, we need to build each site from scratch. So the second phase will be looking at the data from My Account. So My Account collects information about you when you sign up. We want to be able to use that data with CONSUL for participation purposes. So the council would know the age profile or postcode of who isn't participating, and perhaps be able to target resources. So there's limited human resources to the areas or demographics of people who are not participating in the site. So that's been really exciting because we've been talking about it since January 2019, and we finally went live 2 years later. So Moray, West Lothian live right now, as I've said. Moray likely to go live before I don't know if anyone from Murray's on the call, but likely to go live before the summer. Aberdeenshire will follow, and then we are scheduling all of the work in with other authorities after that. That's why some of those say TBC, because we have to try and match expectation of councils with our own resource. And then the second development is through the Alan Turing Institute at the University of Warwick. Miguel, the original developer of CONSUL, works at the Alan Turing Institute, does work there. They have successfully gained access to a fair amount of funding to develop some artificial intelligence modules. And whilst those three modules may not mean a huge amount to everybody, the summary of them all is they make the experience better for the user. So if lots of people, for example, were proposing ideas about I don't know, green solutions for waste or whatever that might be, that if you were developing a proposal, you would be able to see easily, it would classify all the proposals that were around green waste, or classify all the proposals that were around cycle lanes or whatever that may be. And it also makes the process a whole lot easier for local authorities if you get thousands of comments at the moment, the only way to get those comments off the site is to download them into an Excel spreadsheet. And I don't know about you, but Excel and me are not friends, and that would give me the fear of trying to analyse 1,000 comments using Excel, and local authorities have did the same thing. So one of the advantages of artificial intelligence is it does the monitoring, it does the mapping and evaluation and grouping of information, a lot of information that's been put on the site. So it uses those artificial intelligence modules. So the artificial intelligence project is absolutely incredible. It is also being developed by Alan Turing Institute, as I said, down south, but we're the only country in the world to use and test it at the moment. So the Institute are developing the modules. We will test them in Scotland, and should the project be successful when it starts at the end of May, if it is successful, it will be rolled out across the world. So with other CONSUL sites, I think you saw at the beginning, there's about 55 countries and 100 different cities and towns using it. So it's a fairly enormous and exciting project to be in, and that's because of the scope and size of CONSUL in Scotland. So fairly exciting to be involved in that, and it will make the user experience better for the user, the community member, the citizen, but also the administrators for councils. So that will help part of the issue around debates and proposals, where the capacity to be able to look at all of those proposals and look at all of that text, it'll make staff time a whole lot more free up a lot of time, because the artificial intelligence does all the grouping together of things for staff members. So hugely exciting. So that goes live at the end of May, and we're just waiting on confirmation of that from, I think, the 14th of May from the guys at the Institute, and it looks like it'll be Murray that go live with my account and artificial intelligence first, and then every other site that is developed. I should say that from that list at the very beginning. So this is, I know Nicola and John will share this slide here with all of the links to the councils I showed you, but I just want to go back to here. So all of these councils that have not been live yet will all go live with CONSUL, with my account and artificial intelligence. We're just trying to schedule in all of that work. So it works for the councils, and it works for poor Tom, who's all on his own doing all that technical work. So these are the ones that have gone live without my account, other than West Lothian, and we need to transfer them all to new sites at a time that works for them, and we need to develop. These ones will be new sites, and again work with councils, so we it can fit into each other's timelines. So that is CONSUL. Not so much a whistle-stop tour, because you've heard me for a fair amount of time. So I'm just going to stop screen sharing. As I said, Nicola will share that information, those slides with you. That last slide there has the links to the sites that I've shown you so far, and that top one is the global site about CONSUL. So if you just want a bit more information, if you're looking to share a bit of information with colleagues, there's, I think, 30-second videos on each of the participation processes that are good for sharing with other people if you just want to let them know a little bit about CONSUL. And it's got links to all of the global sites on there too, if you just want a bit more information about CONSUL around the world. So I will just take a pause and see if there are any questions or comments, and I will just stop sharing my screen now. I definitely don't do very well with silence, so I end up filling it with nonsense. So if you do have any questions.
I hear you, Jillian. It's Nicola here, and I feel the same. And thank you so much for taking us on the walk through, the functionality and capability of CONSUL, and also the insight to what's to come next. That it feels very much that there's, the foundations have been built, and there's been lots of testing, and some authorities are really accelerating the use of CONSUL, but there's very much, there's more to come. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really, really enjoyed what you've had to share. I see there's a question in the chat bar
Debbie,
Yeah.
I can answer that and say, Debbie, it does both of them. There are two styles of voting. They're called knapsack and approval voting, if you really need to know that technical bit of it. And that means that you can do PB with a specific number of votes. And for anyone that loves the international thing, we got the coding for the specific number of votes from New York. So we do share coding across the world. And the other knapsack type of voting is you start with £10,000 and you keep allocating until you've spent your £10,000 or whatever it might be. So there's two of them, two styles that we can do. I don't think, no, I know, I was going to say I don't think, I wasn't confident in my answer there. Nobody has used the knapsack style voting yet, but I think we will see much more of that style of voting when it comes to mainstream PB. But, you know, we're a year behind with mainstream PB, as we are with lots. Yeah, I don't think there are any other questions.
I could just see some thank yous coming in from folks. Just thanking you for your insight and the level of information you've shared.
Well, it's been great for me to share it with a different audience and a different group of people. A lot of councils have seen a bit about CONSUL and a lot of you know, senior management or specific services, so it is always good to talk to other people about it, particularly those obviously that have an interest and a professional interest in participation with people, which is what CONSUL is all about. So my contact details are at the end of the slides there if you want to speak about anything CONSUL related. I should let you know I did work in the PB team at COSLA, but have since left the PB part of my job to go work with the Children and Young People team on the Promise. So if you have specific questions about PB, contact Katie, but anything CONSUL is me and then PB is Katie. But it's been super to spread the CONSUL word, and happy to have a conversation with anybody offline if you've got any other questions.